What would you say to somebody who believes that mastery cannot be improved upon?
They cannot be improved upon. They have concluded for themselves that they cannot be improved upon. So they would say, well, that's what mastery means. And for a beginner, that does make sense. But for a practitioner, there's nothing but mastery. And moving beyond obstructions and neuroses, if you can spot it properly.
Then what is mastery?
Getting beyond. Suffering in this case. You have every form of scientific, philosophic, artistic mastery. Right? You have every form of mastery in every field. Right? You have mastery in the field, right? Agricultural mastery. Okay? Getting the job done better and better every day. Baseball mastery. Tennis mastery. Sports mastery. Self-mastery. Right? Mind mastery. Emotional mastery. Well, there are no more emotions that stand in the way. None. Ask the masters about that. They'll tell you that straight up. There's no doubt there. And no confusion there. Hence the terminology, the sword of wisdom. All BS is cut down. Firstly, the self-notions of knowing anything, say, are dashed and slashed in a split second. Then what's left is maybe openness. Not delusion, but openness to what is real, beyond your self-opinions, self-limiting ideas and mental structures, believing in yourself. See? When there's no belief and there's no self. In truth. Ask the practitioners. Ask the monks. Ask the Dalai Lama. Ask anyone, for that matter, with common sense. The program of being self-liberation or self-limitation, either, it's smashed, it's gone. Disintegrated, obliterated.
Would you say mastered?
Mastered means gone beyond. Not as a limitation. It's simply a program. And it becomes a issue of understanding what limitation means, and what self means, and what no self means, and what self-liberation means. And for those who are stuck, there's no answer that's going to be adequate. And there's no transformation in evidence either, in their case. See them one time and come back 10 years later, you see the same thing. No change. Changelessness, but it's not enlightened changelessness. Beyond change. They are changed to not change. See? As if frozen in time. Not in the light of the fire. But as a rock placed on the ground. There is a level of psychic individual that really appreciates this music. In my family of psychics, Christian, spiritualists, they weren't into this kind of music, but they vibed on it, they got it. And they said, that's very powerful stuff you're playing. They said, we feel it. So we get the vibrations from it, it's very intense, very high, high, intense, that means abstract. See, very complicated, it's like not from ordinary, say, egoic minds, not self-meditating, self-reflecting. Limitation, it's like breaking through, it's like drilling, see, cutting through. That's a very good perception, Diti. Very good, that's the nature of this. Going beyond, see. So in the beginning of spiritual practice, meditative practice, you're either prone to be obsessed by your thoughts, or you go beyond them. There's a stage of practice, or there's schools of practice that say, no, just let them be, and then they'll disappear. If you don't give them power or attention, they'll go. That's a fundamental approach. When the fire is on, whatever shows up is burned to a crisp in a second. It doesn't hold, it doesn't stay there. So everything is like a furnace is on. Right? It's a continual, it's called the ever burn, is going on, relative to thoughts and emotions, images. And yet it has focus, because the soul is in control. Right? The soul level, the clear is in control. It's beyond perception already. How many people are working from the soul level, beyond perception, and able to determine perception, but not be limited by perception?
As I've been here for longer and have taken on more intense forms of practice, my experiences have shifted and started to include things that are much more difficult to describe. Sensitivities and knowing and all these things that I'm curious about. I don't know whether I need to be, or whether asking about what they are, what they mean, is useful even.
We can say they're not, but if they show up, they show up. If you're talking about feeling shifts in your reality, your general reality, that's part of the process, because we're talking about different dimensions of consciousness. I mean, the scientists and the masters, right? The masters, for real, those who are willing to go through anything and everything to have a clearer understanding, see, especially as regards the search, see, the search for knowledge, the search for experience, and needing to know, because at some point on the journey, see, in the process, that all burns, it dissolves, it's gone, and you are done. It is done. But at that moment, then you know all there is to know. Ask anyone who knows you. And say, no, he's done. He's at the source of knowledge and wisdom. Or she is, or whoever it is. Right? It's done. All books can be written on what they say, and it holds up as scripture after that. They are in a certain condition where it is coming through freely, it's clear. It has nothing to do with self-liking or disliking or duality or any such thing. It's not about concepts. It's not about difference. It's not about distinguishing one thing from another. So it's just gone. It's bright, it's clear. It's even radiant. And people who are around such people will feel there's a radiance. There's something's going on there. See? And it's consistent with their consciousness, their intelligence, their vibration, and their practice, see? Their being. Or if the person's playing, they feel it. They say, no, this person is not coming from the usual self-thought and mind, worldliness. They've opened to something else, or they've been chosen for something else. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The near-death experience is very good yoga practice. Mm. So in some of my own experiences, relative to the vividness and the imagery, I have allowed them to be recorded for the sake of other people who've had certain kinds of experiences like that, where their experience or perceptions that they died and went to heaven. Mm. And since I've had these kinds of experiences, I can say it's not like you come back as an ordinary person. It's catastrophic. You come back almost permanently changed or affected. How so? Don't need to talk about that. That means you got so deep and so other than yourself, you couldn't recover it on the return journey. Right? Because as we evolved and we realized that we are light and not anybody. You're not anybody. You're no one. You're just light. When you get into light, as light, for light, to light, by light, and that is the real for you, you're different. Something else has stepped in. Something else has been allowed to flood in circuits. See, clean you out, purge you of your self-crap. See? That can happen. And so I say that's good yoga practice. Doesn't matter if anybody experiences it that way or not. But when there is this radical change, when you come back out of your experience or dream or fantasy, imagination, and everybody knows it, something's changed, everything falls away, right? Spiritual practice is being experienced. Yeah. And that's another step on the path.
So then does one aim to
No
cultivate?
aim. No aim. Just be open. No aim. Surrender. Open. The phraseology in the circles of the real practitioners is open to spirit. Open to zero. You can't do that. It's not a thought. So it's not like you can strive for it. Say, I'm opening to zero. No, you're not. You don't even know what zero means. You couldn't stand it. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for calling me tonight. Yeah. Oh, I'm cool. I'm working on getting back to zero. I'm trying. I don't know if I'm making any progress in it. That's not it. Comment.
Yeah, that really highlights the sort of silliness of effort, of self, the self-effort. Though it seems like it also is a really useful step for certain people to make a decision and do something, whether it's to try and come up with a near-death experience for themselves, to...
Good luck. Good luck. Because what I'm talking about will stop your heart. Good luck. Will stop your brain. Right? Well, you're gone. evidence, you are gone. And then back. And you live to tell the tale. Not that experience is guaranteeing anything or promising anything, but there are key experiences of dissolution that are part of the evidence of this practice, say, of transcending body, mind, and self. Say. And world. And not that it's a big deal. It happens. In the spirit of nothing happens, it happens. But everyone we know otherwise is so busy clinging to everything they know, feel, believe, perceive, and remember. They're hanging on to tons and mountains of garbage that would not in any way make it possible for you to have that experience. Except by accident, by miraculous means, intervention, perhaps. But who knows? Do you? For many who are gravitated, materialized, there's no way for them. There's no way. They are what they are destined to be. Their purpose is to be that mindset, that they are materialized, gravitated, and nothing else matters. But for those who are in the mode of progression, they have to lift themselves up somehow, or be open to being lifted out of their casket, say, of selfness, and allowed to see something more and greater than their coffin, the wood, the box of their coffin, under the dirt, of contentment and comfort, 6 feet under that entombment. And everyone is where they need to be, but is that all they need to be? It's a question. Can you be more, or are you at the limit of what you can be? And you see that it's yourself that is not being more than it can be. And thus your karma is self-created and self-sealed, like the closing of the casket.
It's been almost a year since we recorded In Pursuit of Zero, which was a pivotal video. And
in what way pivotal?
Well, it was the beginning of a much more intense version of my practice and exposure to the burn here. You know, I began coming every week, and progress is striking. The experiential part of this, not knowing, but the sort of like the deepening and the richness of the mystery and the knowing of the knowing beyond knowing, as you talk about it, is
more than conversation.
Yeah, it is separate from that. Yeah, it's very difficult to describe in words.
It's kind of like being taken off the planet in a mothership, right? And then experiencing certain things, and then coming back, and then You don't know what to say about it.
Yeah. I mean, how do I relate to anybody?
Who's going to believe you?
But great. I mean, that's what I'm here for, is not to relate to people. Is not to make myself anything more, which I've learned along the way. It's to know the burn.
The beauty and the grace of the burn, right?
Yeah.
Magic. It's almost magical.
Yeah.
So subtle yet so powerful. Because we open to what it is. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's waking up. I mean, there's so many ways it's described in different traditions, but the absolute importance of this practice, the almost life and death quality, urgency, the no choiceness of it is, it's clear. I mean, it is reality itself that, I'm being, exposed to, offered and shown as my own reality. Language, again, it limps to try and describe, this past year's, call it progress, unfoldment.
Yeah, exposure.
Yeah.
Right.
But not that there was really any doubt in my mind that the process was for real.
You needed exposure to it to the degree where it made a substantial impact on a more consistent level in your case, in your life. See? So you felt closer to what that is within you, not outside of you. See? So it brought you within, so you have a better sense of your own resonance with deeper levels of consciousness. Right? So it's like a pull, it's centripetal, pull in. See? It's the nature of the burn and the flame to draw you into it. Yeah? It's internal. And it's activated by being around a person who has a certain relationship to what that is. And you start to feel it. It's kind of like the music. The music's a sound version of what we're talking about. You open more and you get closer to what it is, and what you didn't understand, that disappears and you start to understand it. Not because anybody's doing anything, but because you're in resonance with it. It's almost like you're teaching yourself to hear it, because you have no choice. It's in you. It's in your face. It's in your bones. See? Sound-Radiance. See? It's part of the technology here. Heart, fire, sound. Radiance. Manifestation of silence. Good practice.
Definitely. We were just talking about process and the individual's process of unfolding over time, and
it is an individual process. Question: you're living proof of it, and you are living proof of it. We are all living proofs of what it is. Come on.
Yeah.
It's the only way it can be. You go to sleep into your own reality. You can share certain levels of consciousness with other people, but it's your reality. It's your heart. It's your mind. It's your moment, say, in the sun. In the light. Your moment. Unique. Therefore, it is said is a kingdom within, not without. It's not social. Although we are social beings, but then there is the within.
And some of us are fortunate enough.
So you are the midpoint. Yourself is the midpoint to infinite inner and infinite outer, cosmically speaking. Macrocosmic outer and the microcosmic inner, same thing. Both vast and incomprehensible.
Yeah. And to the individual part of it, and some of us are lucky enough to have teachers or guides or sources of wisdom, books, whatever. But we were just talking about proving it to yourself.
Self-realization, basically put differently. Your experience, what unfolds before you. And if you have the intelligence to start putting the inner and the outer in some kind of a configuration of, say, understanding the balance between the two, then you're practicing. And to the degree that you need to be around a teacher, which is like a furnace, just kind of raging fire of sorts. I mean, you have to find that out for yourself too, right? Then you make contact, get the heat, feel the burn, and go off and work from that. And sometimes the way you were pacing it earlier, left up to your own designs, right? Once every now and then, every blue moon, as they say, wasn't enough for you, so you were complaining about it. Hey, when am I going to make some progress here? When you're here more often, right? When you're closer to the fire, then you might feel it, and it'll catch on. So he caught fire. He's on fire right now. Come in.
Yeah.
And so it's not like anybody's doing it to you. It's really, now go back to sound, it's resonance with the force. Not everybody's going to have resonance with what's going on here, no matter where they are on the scales of the hierarchy of the universes. Some will have resonance. Certain masters will have resonance with this, others won't. Certain beginners will have resonance with this, others won't. It's like the music. It's a code. And so we're talking about the code here. The heart, fire, sound code is a spectrum, of resonances for people. So sometimes when you get the music, you can hear the writings differently. You say, well, this is the lyric to the music, or this is the music to your teachings. I said, good. Left and right brain working together. Complete.
Or this is the same catastrophic force in both.
Exactly. Same being. Not for everyone. Not everyone can handle the intensity, the demand, and the collapse of time, space, energy, and matter in the presence of that force.
You have a great equation. You talk about no self, no thought, no mind.
Equals no problemas.
Yeah. What's the distinction between thought and mind?
Well, what do you think? You've read enough now to give us quite an elaborate discourse on it.
That's not quite what I wanted. Well, thought is a byproduct of active mind. It seems like they're very closely related, thought and mind.
Of course. Self being primarily image, thought patterns and processes that can have a mechanical basis, and they often do, very mechanically speaking. Mind, states of consciousness. Unconscious, conscious, superconscious. Depends on where you're at in the scheme of things. How open you are to the deeper, the vasta, the much more than inward, right, and the much more than outward.
Yeah, and I guess in my case, the experience of having demonstrated so much of this to myself. And I think that's one of the very early things that we talked about back in whatever year it was, 7 years ago when I showed up. He said, you have to prove it to yourself. And you said it again 10 minutes ago. And that's very, very true.
It's a standing command.
Yeah.
See? It's a directive, see, from the soul level, see, of stillness and clearness, see, and hearing lessness and seeing lessness, see, and knowing lessness. See? Being. Practice of realization.